Today we're going to start lesson 3, which is creating animation with behaviors. Behaviors is an effect that has instructions that will describe how an individual element moves or spins or fades, and it allows you to create the animation procedurally. So it's a set of instructions that you don't have to worry about keyframes with. It will follow along and tell your object or your element, your text, whatever, how to move in the screen. And we're going to use some of the behaviors in basic motion and in simulation to animate the first half of the opening title for your documentary project. So you've already done the second half in lesson 2. This time we're going to do the first half. And so to get to this where we're going to actually start, so they've already put some things together. You know how to import, and so they've already put all of these elements into the motion project we're going to use. So instead of going to the media file like we've been going, we're actually going to go to lesson number 3. So in your Motion 5 book files, lessons, and then we're going to go to documentary, and it's hard to read here, so let me widen it out so you can see the whole thing. It says behaviors start motion, and when we open it up, you will see that it's going to already have the layers of the elements that we need for this project. So if I go to my background, it has my background, the same one we already created, and then it has the opening animation, and there's a few of those. There's dates, there's photos, and then there's some graphics as well. And all of these are at the present moment not highlighted because we're not to the point where those actually are open yet. So if we look at our dates, you can see that these are staggered. So the dates don't even start until about a second in. And so as it moves, it goes through the dates, and then it flashes and goes through all the dates from 1984 to 1992. And so you can see that it's taking each one and putting it in separately, staggered just like we did the photographs in lesson number 2. The same thing with the photos. Let's open up the photos, and you'll see again these are staggered. Well, this is not checked, so it wasn't viewable at that point. So here's the photos. So we're going to turn that one back off. And then we have our graphics, and really there's only one graphic, and it doesn't come in until about 4 seconds for this particular opening. But this is the same one that we used earlier, slightly different, but the same shape that we used in lesson number 2. So let's go back to the beginning, and let's take a look at our first part that we're going to do is add basic motion behaviors to the dates. And before I get started, I don't want to have what I save here to be saved for any other classes, so I'm going to rename this file. So I'm going to go Save As, and I'm going to change the name, and we're going to call it what we normally do, which is the name, and then we're going to go to Motion Lesson 3. And so now I know that this is where I want to save it, and I'm going to find my file that I've been saving everything in. So for me, I've been putting everything in different periods, so I know how far each one is. So I'm going to save it to those folders. So now I have my Motion Lesson 3, so whenever I save something, it's going to automatically put it right there. So we've looked at the background, we've looked at the opening animation, the photos, graphics, and all. And what like I said, we're going to open up the dates and the photos, and you can see throughout the program how we're going to change these up. So we're going to make sure the graphics is closed, and we're going to open up the dates. And really how we're going to start is we're going to select one date at a time. So I just want to work with this particular layer right here, where the date says 1984. I really don't want to see the other ones while I'm working on this, so I'm going to actually uncheck all of those except 1984. So I'm going to come down my timeline and turn off everyone except 1984. So in this one, when I pull it, it doesn't matter what it is, the only one I see is 1984. We want to select this range and only this range. So we want our start to be right here and our end to be right here as we're playing around with this particular element. So to do that, I need to hold down the Shift button, and I'm going to press I for my start. And then to mark that, I'm going to press Command Option I. And you'll see that my play range went from the beginning to the beginning of 1984. The next thing I want to do is take the end of that, so Shift O for out, and then Command Option O, and again my marker went from the end all the way to here. So all I'm working with is 1984. So let's go to our library, so Command 2, and we're going to again work with the behaviors. The first behavior we're going to work with is going to be in the basic motion, and we're going to use the grow shrink behavior. So we're going to apply this to 1984. Now what does grow shrink do? Well, here's a preview of what it does. It grows and then it shrinks back into the background. And to see how much it shrinks as it goes along, let's take it back to the beginning there. We're going to take these, and we can do it from the corner. It will take all four of them, or we can do it just from, if we want to make it skinny or just maybe short, we can do it that way. So it's probably easier just to take it from the corner and make it really small. So now as it plays, you'll see that 1984 is shrinking. Now if I wanted it to grow, then I would take it and make it bigger. And so now it's going to grow out that much. The other thing that we can do is to set our speed, which is the zoom. How much we want it to go, how fast we want it to grow. So we take it back and we make it bigger, and then you'll see that the speed is now adjusted. We want to make it smaller at that same speed. Take it back to the beginning, and then you see that it actually does speed up that part. Okay. So we want to set the speed first, and then we can take the rest of it and decide how we want to do it. So we don't want it to be too fast, but we are going to take it and make it small, that when the other dates are coming in, so this is our first date, when the other ones come in, they're going to be doing similar but not exactly the same behaviors. We can add more behaviors on top of others. So let's add the fade in and fade out behavior, and we're just going to apply it again to 1984. And so as we're doing this and we select fade in, fade out, you'll see that it takes 20 frames to fade in and then 20 frames to fade out. Let's increase this to 30, which means it'll take about half a second to fade in completely. And then at the end, it'll fade out. So that is our fade in, fade out. It does both. You can change how fast you want it to fade in, how fast you want it to fade out. And the last one we want to use is, let's use spin, and you'll see it spinning different ways. I can drag it or I can hit apply. And this HUD is going to be a little bit different because we have these arrows in it. Now the outside arrow is going to tell us how it spins from a clockwise, counterclockwise position. And you'll see this little number here that tells us how many times it spins. So if I take this arrow and go again, when I reach the top, it is now saying it's going to spin twice. I can do it again, it spins 3 times. So the more I have, the faster it's going to spin. And it just keeps going and going until we get to that point. So I drag it to set the rotation and the speed of that. And I can also go backwards, counterclockwise if I wanted to. And so let's go ahead and just make that spin once. We can do it multiple times on subsequent ones. And then you'll see that it's only doing it one way or the other. Within spin, though, there is that other middle one, which is actually sort of a 3D type. So I can tell, if I hold my mouse button down, I can tell it how I want it to spin in another direction. So in a 3D type field. And so I can tell it I want it to spin clockwise, counterclockwise, or I can tell it I want it to spin at an angle. And so it's going to do that. And that is, let's just leave 1984 at that point and go ahead and save. And now let's start working on our other dates in our next video.